Join with me now in the prayer of approach. Eternal God, in the reading of Scriptures, may your word be heard. In the meditation of our hearts, may your word be known. And in the faithfulness of our lives, may your will be known. For your Son, Jesus Christ, came, that we might have life in all its fullness, to forgive us in our failures, to accept us as we are, to set us free from the power of evil, and to make us what we were meant to be. Amen. While we were chatting at the back of the church this morning before service, we were talking about the anger of Mother Nature, if you will. Earlier in the year, the fires in British Columbia, California, the tornadoes through Ottawa, Quebec, the devastation that resulted from those things, and now Indonesia with its earthquake, mudslides, tsunami, and the fact that over 800 people have died. And of course there are many, many more under the malls and the hotels and the buildings. And Japan facing the typhoon Trami that is going to land on them any time if it hasn't already, with 200,000 people already evacuated and another 200,000 poised for evacuation. Mother Nature is wild. When we stand with our coffee and look at the television, which brings you the news, we mentally thank God that we are safe in this particular time. We never know what is going to happen, which is just as well. Probably scare the life out of us. And all we can do is take it one day at a time. When Barbara and I were serving Port Elgin United Church many years ago, a friend offered us a cottage for a weekend where I had a holiday. And it was great. It was just a few kilometers down the road from Port Elgin, a little place called Amberley, but it was on the shores of Lake Huron. And Lake Huron is a body of water which is a bit shallower than Ontario or Superior or Erie, but it has a vicious temper when the winds get up. In fact, later on, while we were there in the winter, there were fishing boats who usually park themselves at the harbour in Goderich, leaving Southampton, Port Elgin to go south, and in the wintertime they park them there, or more than there rather. But this particular day in which they were setting out, one fishing boat was late in leaving and encountered a storm in December. There was ice and there was snow, and the force of the wind was driving the fishing boat anywhere but where it wanted to go. And the sad part about it was that this fishing boat was not to reach its destination. The captain was in touch with his wife 5 minutes before the boat sank with all hands. There were 5 men that drowned that particular day. The day after, the lake was as calm as anything. So when we were down at Amberley that week of holidays, every day was great. No telephone, no sermon to have to prepare, just to be able to relax and enjoy what God had given to us. But on the Friday night, a storm suddenly arose on Lake Huron. The rain poured down the chimney, on either side of the chimney. The flashing, I guess, was not very strong at the roof of the house, of the cottage. And we were putting towels and towels there. And it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, so it was light, and you could look out the window, and there you could see the waves churning and smashing, the wind howling. And as we watched, we saw trees floating by. And then there was a clump of earth with bushes and grasses on it. And a little bit later on, there was... I heard that. Later on, there was a chunk of land with fence posts in it going by. It was as if the storm had hit a spit of land that jutted out into Lake Huron and took the whole of that spit away. The day after, of course, and then that morning after when the storm died, everything was nice and calm as anything, but all the beaches from Amberley north to Port Elgin in Southampton were strewn with debris of all kinds. Charles Wesley, some 200 years ago, was standing at an open window in the southern part of England when there was a storm. And as he stood there, he watched the waves, and then now and then there'd be a bird, unable to combat the force of the wind, flashing by. And one of them landed on his lap, trembling. At first he thought the thing was dead. He took it in his hands and held it. And it trembled. Then finally, after a while, seemed to realize that it was quite safe in his hands. And while again, it hopped onto the window ledge and sat there for a while, and preening its feathers, so it kind of looked back at Charles and flew away when the storm had died. But as Charles was saying and talking to a friend, he said, that little bird left me a song. And what Charles did was sit down and write, Jesus, lover of my soul, let me to thy bosom fly, while the nearer waters roll, while the tempest still is high. Hide me, O my Saviour, hide, till the storm of life is past. Safe into the haven guide, O receive my soul at last. God has given to us today. Enjoy it. Live it to its fullest. Observe what is around you. This morning, one black squirrel and a number of ravens as they journeyed here. God's creatures, as important and blessed as you and I. Think on it.